I am overworked, underpaid, exhausted. But damn it, I'm not going to bed until I read you this chapter. Let's do this. Chapter 13. Nick lay in bed reading the latest article Jordan had written about Jason. He could tell she had held back, and he appreciated it. There was no mention of Daisy nor any other inside dirt that could get anyone in trouble. Anything she mentioned could be pulled from his videos and party cliches were described as generic. Nick couldn't find any reason for Jason to be so upset, other than not seeing it coming. Jordan had done everything her bosses asked, and nothing more. If Nick was being honest, he read a few of the articles before, and this one felt way short. She'd accomplished still doing what she was told while smearing Jason. Whilst not smearing Jason. Getting up, Nick was cautious to look out for any traps laid by Teddy. When he felt sure the coast was clear, he went to the kitchen and poured himself some cereal. He normally wouldn't eat like that. He normally wouldn't eat. That's a misspelling. Sorry. Typo. He normally wouldn't eat like that, mostly because he could never remember to buy it. That was about to change, as he had been offered a year's supply in exchange for mentioning the brand in one of his videos. For a task that took such minimal effort on his part, it paid off at breakfast. Nick's phone vibrated, so he pulled it out to see the notification. It was a text from Jordan. Jason seems pretty mad at me. Nick replied, "Yeah, he read your article." 3 dots appeared immediately, indicating she was typing. Then a moment later, "I know. Hopefully my work lays off me for a while." "Hopefully," Nick replied. He pulled his phone back he put his phone back in his pocket, but it buzzed as he did so. When he checked it, the message said, "He told me you vouched for me. Thank you." Before he could respond, another text came through from her. "Want to get lunch at Harlequin Design today?" Question mark, question mark. Nick had no idea where that was at, but figured his phone wouldn't have a problem locating it. He agreed, and they soon set a time. Okay, I'm waking up a little bit. It's exciting. "What are you smiling about?" Teddy asked. When he walked towards the front door, Nick noted that he looked around suspiciously. "Don't worry," said Nick. "There's no hidden traps. I could definitely use a breather from this prank war." "Okay," said Teddy. "Now I really want to know why you're smiling." Nick shrugged. "Oh, no reason really, except I got a hot date with Jordan." Teddy didn't look amused. "You're stealing my girl?" "She isn't your girl. I called dibs." "Whatever, man. I gotta go." Nick went through the front door. Whatever issue Teddy had, Nick decided they could figure it out that night. For now, he was late and needed to ask his phone where to go. Luckily, he had a fast car and planned to shave off some time. Harlequin Designs turned out to be a small eatery downtown, a relaxing place with a cozy floor space. Jordan was already inside when he got there and waved when she saw him. She waited in the back corner in a booth wearing dress clothes. Nick imagined her work or some event she covered was nearby. He acknowledged her, then went to the front counter and ordered food. As he walked away from the counter, the clerk called for his attention. "Sorry," the man said, "but you're Nick from Nick All the Way?" "I am," said Nick. The man held up a piece of paper and a pen. "I'm a big fan. Can I get your autograph?" "Sure," said Nick, feeling a little awkward. As he signed the name, the man said, I try to get autographs from all the celebrities that pass through my shop." He pointed, and Nick looked up to see a pin board covered in similar autographed pieces of paper. "Nice," said Nick, then handed over the signed scrap of paper. "I'm honored to make the list." Jordan was already finishing with her food by the time he got to her and had moved on to some green tea smoothie looking drink. "You started without me," Nick said, sitting down across from her. "Did I?" she asked. She met his eyes, and he felt a thrill as he fought not to look away. There was confidence in her eyes. And in the confidence, he saw even more beauty. He held his position for only a moment longer, then broke and began unwrapping his sandwich. "What did you tell Jason?" she asked, after he read the negative article I wrote. Nick had to swallow his food before he could speak. "The truth? That you didn't have a choice. He must trust you," she said. "I was sure he'd exile me." "He likes making deals," said Nick, noting that his food tasted quite savory. His statement seemed to intrigue her. "Oh? And what kind of a bargain did you make to keep me around?" Nick thought of Daisy, his agreement to support her infidelity. The food in his mouth lost some of its sensation. He swallowed hard and took a drink to keep from coughing. He didn't want her to know. "Nothing much, a couple collaborations," he said, shrugging. "Sounds like you got the better deal," she said. Nick realized his reasoning didn't make sense. People bargained in exchange to collaborate with Jason, not the other way around. Jason would know that. "I think he was feeling generous," Nick added, hoping it would be enough to get her to drop the subject. It must have worked, because the next thing she said was, "Did he ever tell you how he got started?" "I never asked," said Nick. "Damn," she said. "I'm looking for confirmation. My next article is going to be an origin story. I think it could make up for my last article. Help people get to know him better." Nick sat up straighter. "Is this an interview?" "Of course. I thought you wanted to get me back in Jason's good graces." "I thought this was a date," he blurted, feeling a little embarrassed to say it out loud. It was Jordan's turn to sit up straight. "Oh," she hesitated. "Well, maybe it's both." Nick sank, feeling deflated, though he forced a smile. "So what have you learned so far?" "You really don't know?" "Wouldn't ask if I didn't." "All right," said Jordan. "Apparently Jason was born in North Dakota. His parents are farmers, and presumably that's how he was raised. Right out of high school, he served a tour in Afghanistan before returning home and taking A furlough to travel the country. I can see that, said Nick. Jordan continued. Rumor has it that he was driving down one of those desert roads leading to Las Vegas when he came upon a car broke down on the side of the road and pulled over and offered the guy a ride. She grew animated and talked with her hands. The thing is, when they got to town, they didn't separate. They went out and partied on the strip. Nick used the opportunity of her talking to finish his meal. He wanted to acknowledge her statements, but figured she was so into her story that it would only distract. As it turns out, the guy was a famous Vine star named Dan Cody. Vine? Nick blurted, remembering the old video sharing app that was popular for a few years when he was in middle school. I know, said Jordan, but he was huge. And after that night, he took Jason under his wing. Jason became obsessed with Vine and the lifestyle it created for Dan Cody. The people I talked to claim it changed him to the point of being almost unrecognizable. She leaned forward on her elbows. Like most people, when Vine was shut down, Dan's following disappeared. He didn't diversify into other platforms and had nothing to fall back on. It was a disaster, and Jason was right there to watch it all. Nobody searched for him on YouTube? Asked Nick. He didn't have a YouTube channel, and by the time he got one, it was too late. Most of his followers had moved on. Out of sight, out of mind. Yikes, said Nick. I'm told Dan Cody got heavily into alcohol not long after that. Jason had to sit by and watch his friend slowly drink himself to death. They said he stuck around for a year, but once he realized there was nothing he could do, Jason cut ties. Dan Cody fell into obscurity after that. Nobody knows where he is today. He disappeared? Asked Nick. That or he died. I'm going to look for him in old obituaries tonight, said Jordan. What I do know is that Jason learned his lesson, and when TikTok showed up on the scene, he was ready. He knew what kind of content to make, how to make it, and who to make it for. His audience exploded, and he pushed that audience onto YouTube. She leaned back, satisfied with her tale. From there, he became the fastest growing YouTube channel that we all know and love. Wow, said Nick. I didn't realize Jason was on TikTok. He thought about the video sharing platform, its similarities to Vine. The transition from one to the other must have felt natural. No wonder he had thrived. It must have felt like being a realtor discovering an entire country's worth of vacant land. He almost couldn't lose. There's also a rumor that he had a lot of money in Bitcoin early, but I haven't confirmed that yet. Nick thought about the digital currency and its historic growth. Do you think it's true? Yeah, said Jordan. It's the only way he can afford that mansion, even with so many subscribers. Dang, said Nick, realizing how much a mansion like that must cost if even Jason needs extra income. Don't look now, but do you see that guy who just walked through the door? Nick found the man in question, a tall and skinny guy with a backwards hat, standing near the front door. The man spotted him looking, so Nick turned away. That's George Wilson, said Daisy. He used to have a big lifestyle YouTube, but during the last election, he got super political. When half his subscribers unsubscribed, he backtracked and tried to claim he was for the other side. all that accomplished was pissing off everyone that was still around. She turned her head down towards the table and whispered, "He's coming this way." "Excuse me," Nick heard a moment later. He turned to find George standing at their table. "You're that Nick Allthaway guy, right?" "That's right," said Nick. "I'm George," he said, holding out his hand. Nick shook it as George continued. "I have a YouTube channel where I interview celebrities, and if you have a minute, I'd love to interview you." "Okay," said Nick, more in confusion than acknowledgement. Can you give us a second?" Jordan said right after. When George stepped away, she said to Nick, "That guy's a social pariah. Interviewing with him can only hurt your channel." "It's that bad?" asked Nick. "Why do you think he's begging for an interview? No one will touch him." Nick risked a glance at the guy. He waited near the front window, hunched in on himself. He looked insecure, maybe even sad. "He could be asking for an interview because my channel's growing so much," said Nick. "No," said Jordan. "He's in here every day looking for someone willing to collaborate with him." "Has anyone ever done it?" Jordan watched George for a moment, a pained look on her face. "No, it'd be too costly." "Screw that," said Nick, standing up. He tramped over to the window. George flinched when he got near. "All right," said Nick. "You've got 5 minutes. I'm on a date." George lit up. "Really? I mean, are you sure?" "Hell yes," said Nick. "Why not?" "Okay," said George. He pulled his phone out of his pocket, almost fumbling it. As soon as it came under control, he opened the camera and lifted it to record Nick. "Right here?" asked Nick, seeing George use no external microphone, and the lighting was all backwards. "Sure," said George. "So tell me something about yourself." Nick murmured. "I'm Nick?" "No, like this," said George, flipping the camera around so it faced him. "I'm here downtown with Nick Allthaway, one of the fastest growing channels on YouTube. He has lots of friends and these days spends more time at the top of the trending list than hit songs." He turned the camera back towards Nick. "You've recently started a prank war with your roommate Teddy. Are there any updates on that situation that you can tell my viewers?" The question caught Nick off guard. He hadn't expected George to know anything about his channel in that kind of detail. He looked to Jordan, who took a sip of her drink, then looked away sheepishly. "Did you know I'd be here?" he asked, then decided to go along with the interview. "I would like your viewers to know that Teddy is going down. I have some big things planned for the coming weeks." "Oh, that sounds exciting," said George. "I sure wouldn't want to be him. So what's it like hanging out with Jason Cross? You two are best friends, right?" Sure," said Nick, completely unsure of how he should have answered that. "He's a pretty exciting person to know, unlike anyone I've ever met before." George snuck him a thumbs up from behind the camera. "I bet. After seeing some of the stuff you guys get into, I can't imagine what it's like behind the scenes." Nick wasn't sure this was a question, but he answered anyway. "Someone's usually recording all the time, so basically what everyone sees is an extremely highlighted reel from all that footage." "Fascinating," said George, before launching into another string of questions. Nick answered as best he could, only excusing himself when he believed a proper amount of time had passed. George acted thankful and gracious as he let Nick return to his table. Did you set that up? Nick asked immediately when he sat down. Jordan looked around as she shrugged. I might have told him you were going to be here. I thought he's a social pariah. That's bad for my channel. He is, said Jordan. That's why I warned you. So you didn't accept a blind interview with someone that could hurt your channel, that could hurt your reputation. But you told him I would be here, said Nick. George came in this place all the time, said Jordan. George comes in this place all the time, said Jordan. He doesn't order anything, just loiters and tries to find someone willing to treat him like a human being. Unfortunately, everyone's too scared and unwilling to compromise their image. She set her drink down, pursing her lips in an almost pained expression. I've gotten to know him over the past year. We talked for a minute when I first got here today, and I mentioned that I was meeting you. I had no idea he was going to come over here. So he must have sat there and studied my channel after you guys talked. He knew a lot about me. That's his thing, and why his channel used to be so popular, said Jordan. You've got to stay productive in this town. Nick didn't know how he felt about George studying him before he even arrived, although helping the guy made him feel pretty good, even if deep down he worried at how many subscribers he would lose. I have to get back to work, said Jordan, standing up. I think I've pushed my lunch break as long as I can. Oh, okay, said Nick, feeling disappointed. You should text me, she blurted, then cleared her throat and continued. I'd like to hang out, just you and I. No interviews? Asked Nick. No, nothing, just the two of us. Nick thought he liked the sound of that, although a normal date was already what he thought they would be doing today. He supposed he didn't want to complain. Deal, he said. You're a good guy. Caught up in a wrong crowd, said Jordan, then turned away and walked. Nick watched her go, admiring her form. He wondered about her parting words, wrong crowd. He didn't quite understand. Jason and the rest of his squad seemed like nice enough people. It wasn't like they were heavy into drugs or anything. He couldn't see what she was talking about and let the thought slide. As Nick left the restaurant, he could see George still by the window and filming himself. He talked aloud about both Nick and Jason, presumably adding more footage to the interview video they had done. Nick wished he would go film the rest at home or in his car or something. He was being loud. It was awkward hearing himself being talked about like that. He was relieved when he finally got outside and away from the noise. The breeze felt nice when paired with the warm sun. He closed his eyes and took a breath. There was more exhaust in the air than he would have liked, but just then, he didn't mind. That's Nick all the way, he heard someone exclaim and opened one eye to check. It was a couple walking with locked hands in matching red outfits. Both had bleached blonde hair and rippling muscles that bulged against their clothes. They looked like the kind of people his cousin-in-law Tom would hang around. We watch your videos, the girl exclaimed. Can we get a picture? Added the guy. Nick felt awkward, but managed to say yes. The couple settled up on either side, neither being shy to lean against him. The man lifted a long selfie stick with a GoPro camera on the end. A small red light flashed 3 times, and then the couple moved away. You're awesome, the woman said in parting. As they were walking away, a third person Nick hadn't seen came up and stuck a very expensive looking camera in his face. A flash went off as they took a picture, momentarily blinding Nick. As he reeled from the surprise, they snapped 3 more pictures. "Nick," the person all but shouted, "what's your next video about?" Nick took a defensive step back, and the cameraman followed. "Do you have any scars from the stunts Jason forced you to perform?" the man continued. "No," Nick managed. He tried to get a look at the man, but the camera kept flashing. "Are you dating anyone?" Nick had enough. He ran around to the driver's side of his car and opened it and hopped in. As his eyes adjusted, the camera continued to flash outside, and he could still hear the man shouting questions. Nick turned the engine on, then hit the gas, leaving the man standing there. Paparazzi. Okay. I'm going to bed. Till next time.